Good afternoon, everyone. Josh is Severe Weather, and happy Thursday the 5th to you. Hope everybody's had a great week so far. We're going to talk about an increase in the number of features we're watching in the tropics as things are waking up pretty quickly here today, but a lot of uncertainty still as nothing is really in a rush to develop in the Atlantic. Now, the Pacific is seeing development. And I'm going to talk about each of the basins and what we can expect here over the next coming weeks. So I appreciate you guys joining me today. The tropics are coming back to life. Granted, they're taking their time to do that. And we now have low pressure, which has formed near the Houston area, just at the coastline. That is going to drift south. We've been tracking a wave moving across the Caribbean. That is going to move into the Bay of Campeche over the weekend. And next week, the two could kind of merge together into a system that has a chance of developing and maybe drifting northward towards the Gulf Coast. A little too soon to say how strong that'll be, but right now indications are that we could have a tropical depression and maybe even a tropical storm moving northward towards Texas, Louisiana, and even the central Gulf Coast around this time next week. We also have a system that may develop near the Mexican coastline that could produce some weather and maybe some problems on the Mexican Riviera and up towards the Baja California. And now we've got a new invest, which is beginning to form west of Bermuda, east of the Carolinas, heading up towards Atlantic Canada early this weekend. That could strengthen. It may not become fully tropical, but we may have a quick strike coming on Nova Scotia here by Saturday. And we continue to watch waves coming across Africa. Right now, nothing showing any immediate signs of forming, but conditions over the next couple of weeks are expected to turn gradually more favorable. And this is the time of year we need to be watching this region. It hasn't really unfolded in the last month. We've been very fortunate, and that's been a bit unexpected, and I'm personally okay with it. I don't know anybody who's not, to be honest with you guys, but if you are in the islands, if you are on the Southwest Atlantic, East Coast, this is the area we need to be watching here over the next couple of weeks. Here's a look at Zoom Earth. You can see, looks like pimples over here, 5 different areas being watched by the National Hurricane Center, but everything is yellow for the time being, less than 30% risk. We also have an area to watch here, which may form pretty soon off the Mexican Riviera, and 4 systems in the Western Pacific, couple of invests. We do have a tropical depression, and the bad boy on the map is Yagi, which was a super typhoon, come down just a bit to what would still be a stronger Category 4 on the Atlantic hurricane scale, and that is heading towards South China here in less than 24 hours. Here's a closer look at the 5 areas now circled by the National Hurricane Center, 6 if you count the Eastern Pacific. And the one that has maybe the greatest chance of popping up into a system would be this one crossing the Yucatan and moving towards the southwestern Gulf of Mexico. That will take shape here late this weekend. We also have a feature coming southward from Houston. The two could merge, or they could kind of pinwheel across each other. But either way, conditions in the Western Gulf are going to turn more favorable to see some development here. Here's a look at the tropics, and you can see the brightest colors on the map are now near Texas and Louisiana. I'll circle that for you guys here. This is the area of the most intense rain across the entire basin. The next area to watch is around to the west of Bermuda. Low pressure has formed here, and there's wind shear coming in from the west hitting it. But there's enough organization here for this to at least be watched. Here is our wave moving to the north of Honduras, southwest of the Cayman Islands right here. So it is drying out in Jamaica today. This is running out of room to develop on the Caribbean side, but as it tracks in this direction, it should be into a more favorable position. Here's our wave off the Mexican Riviera. And then we've got a couple of features to watch in the Atlantic. Here's one of them, not looking super impressive. Here's the other one behind it. And these two may actually circle around each other and do a little bit of a dance here. We're not done, though. There's more activity getting ready to come off of Africa. It's been very wet in Africa this month, and we will continue to track those features as down the road there may be somewhat of a better chance to see development due to the fact that the sinking air we have now is eventually going to switch to a more rising motion. It's just going to take a little bit longer. We got to be patient with that process. But again, that's not a bad thing this time of the year. We are seeing low pressure forming here off the Texas coast. You can kind of see it right here. It is sheared as we do have an upper level trough west of it, but we have intense amounts of rain near the Louisiana coastline this morning and into the afternoon, as well as southeastern Texas. We also have quite a bit of a flare up here as this gets pushed off to the south and west here. You can kind of see this motion here is a clockwise motion around the periphery of a massive area of high pressure. We call it a heat dome or a death ridge in the southwest. That's been responsible for the hot temperatures we've had over the last several weeks. in the desert Southwest and on the West Coast, especially California. That is not going anywhere. At the same time, the front that this is latched onto sits over the warm Gulf of Mexico waters, waiting for an opening for the wind shear to drop so that something can get more organized and concentrated. We haven't really yet seen that, but we are starting to at least see a little bit more of a favorable spot for this to happen here this week. And as we take a look here at the visible image, we're going to just try to look and see if we can find a center of circulation. And there is something. It's kind of broad, but you can kind of see this little bit of a spin right in here. It's probably not all the way down to the surface yet. It may be more in the mid-levels. It'd be great if we could get a plane out here to see, but it may be a wasted trip because nothing has really formed. But there's a little bit of a circulation here southwest of Galveston Island. And generally speaking, it's going to be tracking more southward across the Western Gulf. This is an area we've seen some things pop up pretty quickly in no time. If you guys remember, Tropical Storm Imelda a few years ago was a major problem, but it was very local and very small just for Houston, which is very vulnerable to these kind of flooding events. You can see here, we're going to continue to have flare-up of showers and storms here, feeding in off of Gulf waters, which are almost 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's going to continue to dump just incredible amounts of rain across this region over the next several days. I can speak for friends in Louisiana that have dealt with unnamed systems. They never got a name, but have caused tremendous flooding. We saw that back, I believe it was 2017. Across South Louisiana, some places had 30 inches of rain. Parts of Baton Rouge and South Central Louisiana were completely submerged in water. It never got a name. It was just a feature just like this that happened to be a little bit farther to the north and east. So not trying to scare the pants off of people, but anytime we deal with something sitting here in the Gulf this time of the year, August, September, even if it doesn't get a name, it still can be very destructive. And if you looked at the rainfall forecast for the season, that should be no surprise to you. All right, let's take a look a little bit farther south and west. And you can see we've got our tropical wave finally picking up a little bit of steam, but running out of room to develop. Very small chance. We still could see this maybe briefly become a depression as it moves into Belize and the Yucatan. Either way, you're going to get some gusty wind and heavy rain here as we get to the first part of the weekend, really even tomorrow evening across this region here. These are the heaviest showers and storms right now, just south of the Cayman Islands. These hit Jamaica yesterday, and these will be moving towards Belize and the north coast of Honduras here tomorrow and tomorrow night, and then moving inland and causing localized flooding problems across this area over the weekend. It may develop, it may not. Either way, I don't think it survives this trek here. But if it does reemerge into here, which it probably will by early next week, it may take a day or so, but we should see a circulation form like we saw with Chris back, which silently popped up at the end of June right ahead of Beryl, and even Alberto to a little bit of a degree here, which was in the middle of June. Take a look at some of these rainfall totals. And fortunately, the worst is offshore, but not everybody getting that reprieve. You can see 8 inches now being forecast in New Orleans, 10 in Slidell, 9 in Biloxi and Gulfport, 12 in Houma here across Terrebonne and Lafourche parishes in Louisiana, 10 inches here at Plaquemines Parish, 10 inches as well in the coastal bend here in the coastal counties of the Houston, Galveston Bay area. Take a look at some of what our models are spitting out over the water, 17 inches or more. This is the max of the chart here. Doesn't get any higher this, and this is a rainfall forecast that carries us into next weekend, so about a 9 to 10-day forecast. Fortunately, the worst stays offshore, but any adjustment here brings some of that back off to the north. And also, if we do see something form and maybe move in this direction, these numbers are going to have to be adjusted upward. But this is a blend of all the models right now. Of course, they don't all agree. Here's a look at windy.com. You can see the radar showing showers moving away from Georgetown. Some heavier rain over the water here, but nothing yet organizing at this point. Very fortunate for us now. And you can see just a big blob of soaking rainfall across much of South Louisiana, far southeast Texas. Scattered showers moving up into the Delta region, the Arklamis here as well. Florida is okay for now, but we're starting to get those afternoon storms that pop up and bring localized flooding to some neighborhoods. The garden variety ones that sit there and dump for a few hours and can produce heavy rain. And then you can see we're starting to get more rain into coastal Georgia. Eventually, the low country of South Carolina will see some of that. And then as we look eastward here, Bermuda's got a very big area of rain moving away to the east of the island. Here's Hamilton. Here's where the heaviest rain is falling. And we do have a circulation with a little bit of lightning off to the north and west. But this is moving away from Bermuda at the time. Taking a look here at the possibility of a tropical storm forming, you can see The ensemble is starting to bring in some low chances for development in two separate areas. One from this coastal low, the other from the wave that comes across. This would be on Saturday. The chances climb on Sunday all the way up to 70% in the Bay of Campeche. This is a sneaky little area. It's got very warm water, a little bit deeper as well than the waters here near the Yucatan, and that allows there to be more of a bank in place for storms to develop. They may not be far from land, but they can spin up into something nasty here. As we get beyond Monday into next Tuesday and Wednesday, the chances do start to climb on the southeast Texas coast and southwest Louisiana coast. But a lot of the ensembles still have it buried down in here, some bringing it northward. Again, with it being almost a week away, it's still way too soon to make that call. I've been talking about it for a while, but this is not a slam dunk by any means. This is just something we have to keep monitoring right until the end of next week. Here's a look at the European ensembles. Let me stop that and move it back to you guys from today and on. And I didn't put the tracks on here because it's going to get very messy, but you can see two defined areas of weak low pressure, one moving southwest along the Texas coast, the other heading towards Belize down in here. The two are going to kind of move towards the same direction. They kind of try to aim for the southwest Gulf. There's a little bit of uncertainty, as you would imagine, with the weak low in the northwest Gulf this weekend, but eventually it looks like the southern feature takes over. Whatever's left here in the northern feature may get merged into this system by the time we get to next Monday. This is Monday evening, and overall we see tropical depression, maybe tropical storm intensity on our ensembles. And then we see a few drifting it back towards Texas, northwest, some just kind of hovering close to Tampico. Nothing super strong at this point. And then whatever's left is maybe drifting northward here next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, into next Thursday. And generally speaking, we don't really see anything showing a hurricane. The strongest I'm seeing is a high-end tropical storm. It's not that it can't happen, it's just not very likely at this point. A few days ago, we had very scary models. I chose not to share them. At least publicly. You can find them, of course, on Tropical Tidbits on the other websites. And look, these models change drastically from one run to the other. I like to monitor the trends and see where are my ensembles clustered and where are things trending. And it was very clear that the feature moving through the Caribbean wasn't going to develop at all until maybe it reached here, and now it doesn't look like it's going to do it at all. However, everything showed something in the Western Gulf, so that is the area that we're going to be watching here next week. After that, we should quiet down a bit in the Gulf, but we may stay wet here. We've got a front just kind of lingering for a bit longer. I'll show you a couple quick models here. European AI, windy along the Texas coast. It's an offshore wind, low pressure forming in the southwestern Gulf by early next week. That comes up and it may get stuck or drift northward or even northeastward early next week. This run shows a stronger tropical storm hitting Louisiana next Wednesday night, Thursday morning. But it is going to be interacting potentially with the entire coast as it does that. Eventually it moves inland, but you can see it's going to be pretty wet if this model is correct. The Icon German mesoscale model here, very keen on this low pressure off the Texas coast, but nothing like what it showed a couple days ago. You can see it gets buried down here and merges with the feature coming into the southwest Gulf. And then that eventually does start to get drifted northward again. It's not going to be able to escape to the right and hit Florida due to high pressure building in. It's not going to be able to go west due to high pressure in the southwest, so it gets stuck. But a trough coming down into the east that's going to bring another taste of fall down will try to jerk it a little bit more northward. It may take its time, but we may see some progress northward by the middle part of next week. And here we have a storm that has the potential to strengthen as it approaches the Louisiana coastline here, heading towards next Thursday. So this is about a week out from now, but two models now showing a tropical storm hitting Louisiana next Thursday. Again, that can change, but I do like seeing at least somewhat of a match between more than one model. Here's the Canadian model. Here's our weak low pressure, again, drifting down into the Western Gulf. The next one hasn't come out from Mexico yet, but you can see it's starting to do that. See kind of 1, 2 right here. Here is the system coming down from Texas here, and this is the wave coming across. So you have two low pressure systems, and the time frame on this is going to be next Monday afternoon, so 4 days from now. And then you can see the one that comes down kind of gives way to the one coming up, and this particular run brings it inland into Mexico and Texas, which would be better for Louisiana, of course. But again, it's still showing something there in the Gulf. All right, we're going to move on here. This is Invest 99L circling the area. I talked about it a little bit a few minutes ago. Circling the area here of the Gulf Stream, very warm water in here, getting hit with wind shear, but quite a bit of rain activity off on the eastern and northern side of it, some thunderstorms with it as well. Here's a visible image, and you can kind of see there's a little bit of an exposed low pressure feature in here. You can also see clouds advancing quickly from the west. This wind shear, not exactly great. We've got warm water. We've got probably very gusty winds out in here to the northwest of Bermuda, which is down in here. But we have a lot of wind shear, so the structure is not very healthy on this system. It's just kind of a disorganized blob. Either way, it's coming up towards the Bay of Fundy and western Nova Scotia by the weekend, maybe as a tropical or subtropical storm. Either way, if it doesn't get a name, that's okay. It's still going to bring gusty winds, some higher surf. As you can see, winds ramping up Friday evening on Nova Scotia. This stays east of New England more than likely, and then moves out of the picture by Saturday night. Just a quick hitting system for Saturday. Rainfall potential from the icon shows most of our rain moves in overnight, Friday night, early Saturday morning, heaviest Saturday morning, and then moving away by Saturday evening. Rain totals of 30 to 50 millimeters, especially in southwestern Nova Scotia, 10 to 20 millimeters across eastern New Brunswick, the Gaspé Peninsula, PEI, and heavier amounts across eastern portions of Nova Scotia as well. Newfoundland gets a little bit of rain by Sunday morning, but not a lot at this point. All right, let's look at the deep parts of the tropics, and you can see a bit of an upper level feature here, moving north of the islands. A little bit of a weak circulation here. Doesn't look like it'll develop. That's the 10% area. Here's the 20% area back in here. We're going through flare-ups, but we're just not seeing enough consistency right now for anything to develop, and I'm perfectly fine with that. And then more extremely heavy rain moving across the African Sahel region here. That is going to come off the coast. We need to track it as it moves towards the Cape Verdes, but ideally, to see a long-tracked hurricane, this needs to shift at least 5 degrees of latitude down. It needs to come out over here instead of up here. And the reason why is this area is very stable, a lot of dry air in place, not favorable for development. The longer-term GFS has shown that these systems here are going to try to flirt with each other through next week. The next system, not the one coming off of Africa now, but the one after it, does have some development potential next weekend. And this is something we need to watch in the islands here for the following week. Again, it's really far away at this point, but just something we'll be watching. By the way, this was one run of the GFS. The run after it did not show anything. The 6Z just didn't show it developing. It had just kind of a weak system moving into the Caribbean. But the 12Z run has brought it back to life here, and you can see potentially something here to keep an eye on in the islands. Not next week, but the week after, probably around the 17th to 19th. So we'll watch it. It's still way too far out to even make a forecast yet. Just something we've got to watch. And the last thing I wanted to show you guys before we talk about the Pacific, the reason we're not seeing development, we just see a lot of upper level convergence. This is air that's basically not allowed to spread out, but it's converging, allowing for a sinking motion. This does not bode well for tropical development here. A few days ago, or even a couple weeks ago, the phase towards a more favorable, which would be the greens here, was farther west, and obviously the models didn't get it right, and now we're kind of tucking our tail for a little bit. But as we get to the weekend and beyond, you can see we head into a more favorable rising motion here around the Gulf and around Mexico. And we're transitioning out of an unfavorable pattern here. This is what we have in the central Atlantic by next Tuesday and Wednesday to what should be a much more favorable pattern here in a couple of weeks. It's not there really next week yet in the Caribbean, but you can see here around the 15th to 20th, we start to transition into what should be a more favorable and more active period for action. I can't tell you where things are going to pop up. All we really have to watch are trends, but you can see at the end of September and October, this model may be incorrect, but if this is right, we are in for a very active stretch of weather. The season is not over by far. It is quiet now, but it will get busier. It's tough to say how much and when, but you can see the trend here is going to be for a lot more action here the last week of September and probably into the first part of October as well. Finally, the Western Pacific, you can see bad boy Yagi here drifting westward, was a Category 5, now Category 4. A couple of other systems to watch here. Tropical depression here, invest over here, invest over here. But take a look at this buzzsaw here heading towards Hainan and across southern China. Got about 8 million people in this area that could be impacted by this typhoon. Looking very scary here. And landfall is less than 24 hours away now, probably about 18 hours away. So locally, it's going to be Friday afternoon. For us here in the States, it's going to be Thursday night, early Friday morning. Nasty storm moving very slowly west. Here is the official forecast. Got to 155 here yesterday evening, down to 140. May come down into the 120s, but landfall should be made here around 8 in the morning Friday for us here in the States. Time frame across the pond here is going to be later in the evening Friday. Here's a look at the HAFS model showing a very intense storm, weakening a little bit, but still holding some strength, moving into the Gulf of Tonkin, maybe as a powerful storm, and then weakening right near the China and Vietnam border here and producing quite a bit of rain through the weekend. Very dangerous. So if you have friends and family out there, please check up on them and pray for their safety. I hope you all have a great Thursday, and I'll catch you again here tomorrow. As always, I ask you to like this video, share with your friends, become a member of the community, or just subscribe if you'd like to do that. I appreciate your time today, and I hope you learned something. I hope you feel a little bit better about the forecast, but I also hope that you, I just hope that you realize that weather is a very difficult business, very difficult to try to figure something out. And the season hasn't gone as I personally expected it this month so far, but that can change, and it only takes one storm. I'm here to help you guide through the storms of life that we deal with, but I want to give all the honor and all the glory to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, who has guided everyone through the storms by his sacrifice. God created us, and I think that's a blessing to be able to just say that here freely on the internet. But I know that I can't do any of this without the gifts given to me. I think we all have unique gifts. Everybody here is good at something. You may be really good at typing comments on the keyboard on YouTube videos. I don't know. I'm going to joke about that a little bit. But either way, I think you are a blessing to everyone, and you matter. And the Lord created the earth, and the Lord created his son, Jesus Christ. John 1, the Word became flesh. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him, all things were made. Without him, nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. We all go through darkness in our life, but there is light at the end. That light is Jesus Christ, and I pray that you are a believer in him, but if you're not, I pray that you just see that other folks walking in darkness have that light. They have made that commitment to follow Jesus, and as a result, when our time on earth here is gone, those who have made that choice will have a lot of light waiting for them in heaven. If you have any prayer requests, I'm happy to pray for you today, and I hope you all are staying safe out there. See you soon. God bless.